Could. The Fourth Amendment,
Okay,
okay, but let me.
you guys heard about introductions,
Yes.
and this is how you're gonna be, right?
Yeah. Well, mine is not. Yeah.
But I mean, as far as, you're gonna be the last.
Do you want to switch?
Doesn't matter to me.
Okay. Well, it doesn't matter to me either.
It's whoever,
Wait.
But it's no big deal.
Okay. Well, let's just do it
Who
like this right now.
Okay, just know, that's
Yes.
good that night, okay?
Yes.
Judges walk in, please be seated, please introduce yourselves.
Hello, I'm Eric Urban.
Hello, my name is Maddie Vidalik.
Ben Murphy.
Hi, my name is Hannah Jackson, and we are Unit 5. Our unit coach is Mr. Daniel, and our teacher is Mr. Clark.
okay. And we've selected question number 3 for you today. And question 3 reads as follows. What fundamental values are embodied in the Fourth Amendment? Why have Fourth Amendment issues been a persistent concern from colonial times until today? How and why does modern technology raise new concerns about the Fourth Amendment? And when you're ready, you may begin.
As Justice Louis Brandeis noted in 1928, the Fourth Amendment secures the right to be left alone, the most comprehensive of rights, and the right most valued by civilized men. Privacy, especially as against arbitrary government intrusion, is the eminent fundamental value embodied in the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment recognizes and protects the reasonable expectation of privacy a person possesses through the Warrants Clause and the Reasonableness Clause, which in turn ensure that the government cannot build a case against someone with intrusion into that privacy.
Fourth Amendment issues have arisen consistently throughout American history because, as Lord Acton said, power corrupts, and absolute power tends to corrupt absolutely. As James Madison noted in Federalist 51, if men were angels, no government would be necessary. After the English Civil War, Parliament implemented Section 3 of the 1628 British Petition of Rights, which provided that no freeman may be taken or imprisoned or be disseized of his freehold or liberties. This concept protects the idea that a man's home is his castle. In other words, that a man's personal space has certain protections and immunities that should be recognized.
The idea of being protected against arbitrary government searches has been an issue since colonial times. Because of the violations of the Sugar Act under British rule, government officials could very easily search anything they wanted or seize anything they pleased through the use of general warrants. Although British common law prohibited their use, Parliament allowed general warrants to be used in the American colonies to collect taxes, search for smuggled goods, and to prosecute people who were believed to have violated British trade restrictions.
This led to unrest throughout the colonies and to the creation of the Warrants Clause, which requires a particular description of the places to be searched or people or things to be seized. By demanding strict specification, the warrants ensure that there must be probable cause. It also keeps officers from seizing objects not included in the warrant. Fourth Amendment issues have persisted throughout this nation's history. In 1917, the government passed the Espionage Act, which allowed the government to go through people's mail to ensure loyalty to the U.S.
In the 1939 case Nardone v. United States, Justice Felix Frankfurter elaborated on the concept of fruit of the poisonous tree, meaning that tainted evidence, or in other words, evidence obtained without a warrant, should not be used in court. This led to the creation of the exclusionary rule, first applied to the states in the 1961 case Mapp v. Ohio. This relates to legal scholar Sir William Blackstone's philosophy. It is better 10 guilty persons escape than 1 innocent suffer. All persons in this country have an interest in police officers doing their jobs correctly, even if it is at the expense of the common good.
The technology of today creates challenges with trying to decipher what is private and what is public information, as well as making it incredibly easy to cross boundaries of personal privacy. This was recently seen with the NSA collecting the metadata of millions of Americans without their knowledge. In June of this year, Nevada's DNA testing law was put into effect. Known as Breanna's Law, named after murder victim and Reno High alumnus Breanna Dennison, the law requires enforcement officers to take a DNA swab test for all felony arrests.
The bill raises the concern that the new technology used for the collection and retention of DNA could be a violation of due process and privacy to people who have possibly not committed a crime. Modern technology also has caused authorities to try new and creative ways to obtain a warrant. Now working its way up in the courts, U.S. v. FOIA ETAL argues whether or not authorities can cut off utilities imposed as repairmen to unofficially search a home, later using that evidence to be able to require a search warrant.
In the 2014 landmark case Riley v. California, the court ruled that the warrantless search and seizure of digital contents of a cell phone during an arrest is unconstitutional. The constant advancement of technology makes it difficult to establish what is private and what is not, creating a threat to the fundamental ideals within the Fourth Amendment. Thank you.
Time.
402.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna ask you this again, like I have since the beginning. How would you define reasonable expectation of privacy?
The court ruled, or let me quote the court, which said this in Katz v. United States. Whatever a man reveals to the public, even in his home or office, is not protected under the Fourth Amendment. So if you have not taken steps to ensure that you are the only person reasonably to have access to this, then it should not be private or protected.
Building off of what my colleague Ben said, the court case Katz v. United States really established there's a two-part process for determining if someone has a reasonable expectation of privacy or not. The first one, he stated that you believe that you have taken certain steps and you believe that you are the only person to be able to see or have this thing, so you believe you have a reasonable expectation of privacy. And then the second step would be that a reasonable person, so either the general public or someone that's reasonable, would also believe the same, that you have a reasonable expectation of privacy.
And in the case Greenwood v. California, somebody left a trash bag full of marijuana on a curb. So obviously a reasonable person would not expect that to be private, and I highly doubt that Greenwood thought that that would be private, so he did not have a reasonable expectation to privacy to his marijuana.
In your testimony, you talked about the Brianna law and the DNA testing. How does that violate anyone's rights to have a DNA test taken?
Well, in comparison to maybe obtaining a thumbprint, DNA and the retention of DNA is much more invasive in someone's privacy. Dealing with the DNA, it also traces back to someone's family. So anyone who is related to that person would also be in those records of someone who has potentially committed a crime.
Going off the previous court precedent rulings in Arizona v. Miranda v. Arizona, they ruled that no coerced confessions will stand. And also in Rochin v. United States, 2 officers coerced a man to vomit up evidence, and the court ruled that that would not be allowed in court. So using previous rulings, I would have to say that a coerced swab of DNA out of someone's mouth as well would not be constitutional.
And going off of what my colleague Hannah said about the DNA tracing back to family members, so let's say that your father committed a crime and then his DNA is in there, but also that DNA can be traced back to you and you personally have not committed a crime, but they still have that information on you.
How's that? Okay, they have information. How does that, what rights of yours are they violating?
The right to be secure in your persons, your papers, your effects, because they have all of this information on you without really obtaining a warrant. They're basically like searching through your life without you having done anything wrong and without really obtaining a warrant.
And the Fourth Amendment being a personal right, John Locke said that one of your first rights to property is the right to your own body. So by obtaining a swab of DNA, if you have not committed a crime, that's a violation of the rights to your own body.
Okay, I think too in your testimony you said something about there was a case or something where tainted evidence should not be used in a court case. Do we have any examples of cases where unlawful searches and seizure have been included as evidence in court cases?
Yes. One exception is the acting in good faith, which was ruled in United States v. Leon. If the officer has believed that he was doing the right thing or was under the impression that he had a warrant, then it is allowed to be used in court. And also in Nix v. Williams, the court held that if officers can prove they would have found that evidence legally through otherwise, they would have found that evidence otherwise of that illegal search, then that also may be used in court.
What is probable cause?
Probable cause would be having enough evidence that a reasonable person would also suspect that the person being, how do I put it?
Person in question? Or is that what you're
Yes,
trying
the
to
person
say?
in question. So a reasonable person would also believe, with the evidence you have obtained that this person has possibly done something wrong or committed a crime. So in contrast, probable cause is a higher standard than reasonable suspicion. Reasonable suspicion would be having facts, but it would be more like a reasonable standpoint of a police or law enforcement.
And-
So,
oh.
I'm sorry,
Oh.
go ahead.
And continuing off of that, reasonable suspicion is that you're more than 50% sure that this person has done something wrong. So in probable cause, you might be just like 30% sure, like he seems a little suspicious, maybe we should check him out. But with reasonable suspicion, you are at least 51% sure that this person has done something wrong.
By the time, too bad. Oh, too bad. Okay. Hey.